All right, hello from Chicago and Lake Michigan. Starting with a deep gratitude for the privilege and opportunity to do some healing work here in Chicago for the city of Chicago. This work is for the city of Chicago. And in order to do a healing for a big city like this, the first thing is to be unattached to the experience of any discord that's in the city. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just tuning into where the discord is in the city in a way which lets me feel everything. So there's a experience of perceiving all that discord all at the same time. And I'm letting go. It's causing this being to let go of my own attachment to be present in some of the more manifest levels of myself. Because I realize that in order to experience in detail the discord which is going to get cleared in this healing, I have to be at a deeper level than that. I have to be at a deep enough level that no part of me is affected by that discord. So here is an example of how to deal with self-protection in an environment that's challenging. So just finding myself in that sacred space where everything is good, okay, and it's only Divine Mother flowing, and thank you to the Mother of the Universe, thank you to all the beings of creation, thank you to that divinity and everybody who's listening to this healing, and all other beings, all the ancestors. Okay, right. So what we're doing here is, it appears that awareness is moving back through time and is catching a lot of the initial impulses or impetus behind the creation of the city and the vision of the potential of each individual. So what we're doing is we're activating the potential for happiness, comfort, success, and well-being within each individual where the discord was found. And this structure, these elements of happiness, comfort, success, etc., these can form into a sort of stable structure on the level of consciousness that can, it looks like where it wants to go is in the gap between the subtle levels of the physiologies and the more manifest levels or the denser levels. So right in the gap where the astral body meets the emotional body, right there, this stable form is establishing itself. And it's doing that to help balance the flow of energies from the energies that flow in the more manifest levels of the physiologies and energies that flow in the less manifest. The nature on both sides is to move toward their extreme expressions. So when we're looking at the manifest levels of the physiologies, and that's where I'm seeing most of the discord is sitting, then the tendency is to move toward, greater success, more expansion of knowledge, expansion of friends, expansion of happiness, etc. When we look into the subtler levels of the physiology, what we see is the nature of the being at that level wants to move into expansion of silence, expansion of wholeness, expansion of unity, expansion of unboundedness of being. So these two flows go in opposite directions. And this structure that's sitting in the middle between where these two flows happen, what it's doing is it's creating, think of it like an infinity symbol, sort of. And we're like at the point in the middle of the infinity symbol. And the structure is like an extremely orderly, it's changing right now, and it's looking more crystalline and extremely orderly, with finer, like the main principles that I laid out being on the grosser level, and then there's a whole myriad of finer principles or energetic structures which are which are augmenting or supporting it. And what it's doing is it's helping to balance the flow of being between the flows that go toward the extreme ends of the spectrum and the flows that come into the center. Because we tend to look upon the flows that come into the center as less desirable. This is just the way beings tend to respond to them in general. And what's happening is it's balancing that. And there's a great deal of self-acceptance, self-love, validation, moving into that central area and moving and sort of aligning with that flow as it goes from the extreme ends, which have fullness associated with them, to the extreme middle, which has neither fullness or emptiness or anything associated with it. Just in the middle somewhere. So we want to dislodge. There's like a blockage right there. It wants to dislodge. And it wants to help open up the relationship between what is achieved on the level of the spirit and what is achieved on the level of the material. And right there. And what I'm seeing coming into this space is a really, really nice, what I think of as a primordial light energy that was very present, was like almost the only thing really present at the moment when the creation expanded, when the Big Bang, when the singularity exploded out into its relative field. And that energy tends to be associated with the celestial level of creation, but it's evidently, thank you to Chicago and the brilliance and the amazingness of all the beings and people in Chicago, allowing this information to come forth for the first time for me anyway, that primordial light energy can move its way into this gap between the subtle levels of the physiology and the denser levels of the physiology. And I'm sure it can move into any other areas as well. In fact, it's present at all areas, in all areas, and in all places. And I'm just watching that light kind of working its way, beaming its way through, reflecting its way through. And that's basically what's happening, is that, and this is, I love this. This is like fine mechanics of how we're actually accomplishing this healing process. Because my God presence is doing it, but your God presence is doing it, whether you live in Chicago or not. And what's happening is, think of us like mirrors, that we're mirrors that are reflecting this light back and forth, you know, through the channel, through the venue of YouTube. And as the light reflects back and forth and back and forth, and it reverberates back and forth, it expands and multiplies, and it's able to move into any area where awareness wants it to move. So here I am standing on the shores of Lake Michigan in Chicago, and it wants to move into this particular area of the collective consciousness of Chicago to bless all the people of Chicago and all of our ancestors who came from this area. Because I know many of us who live in the Midwest and other areas of the US do have roots that come back to Chicago. And we're so grateful for all of those who came before us and who did the work necessary in this part of the country in order to help support and build a foundation for the greatness of the heritage of mankind. All reflections back to Europe as well, all reflections back to Africa and Asia and all the other precious countries in the world family of the earth. Thank you to everyone.